Buddha. But, and here's the catch, I don't mean the Buddha you see in the statues. Not the golden figure sitting under the Bodhi tree in, perfect, radiant, unshakable silence.
That's the image we all have, isn't it? The finished product, the destination.
Exactly. But that's not what I'm after today. I want to look at the mind of the Buddha before the awakening, the Bodhisattva, when he was still in the trenches, still figuring it all out. Because we tend to think of his journey as this mystical erasure of thought, right?
It's a very common misconception. We often equate spiritual progress with a totally blank mind. We think the goal is a vacuum.
But we have the source material today that suggests something, well, completely different. We're looking at the Majjhima Nikāya 19, or MN 19, and it doesn't describe a trance. It describes a strategy, an active, almost surgical method.
It is a fascinating text, and you're right to frame it that way. MN 19 isn't some sermon delivered from on high. It acts almost like a logbook. It's a retrospective, where the Buddha literally explains, this is what I did before I was enlightened.
A logbook is a great way to put it. It feels very scientific.
It really is. He's looking back at his own cognitive processes and saying, here's the mess I started with, and here's how I organized it. And what he describes isn't the suppression of thought. It's an exercise in categorization. He's sorting the mail, not burning down the post office.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack one really specific and I think really nuanced dynamic in that logbook. We're looking at the functional distinction between two things. Thinking, which is Vitakka in the text.
And view, or Diṭṭhi.
Right, and those might sound like dry technical terms at first.
They might, but I'd argue this distinction is actually the key to the whole operation. If you get the difference between Vitakka and Diṭṭhi, you understand the mechanism of liberation in this sutta.
Well, it feels key because the central tension here is something I think every single person listening deals with daily. I know I do. You have a bad thought, maybe a flash of greed or a really nasty, angry thought, and what's the immediate reaction? I am a bad person. We just merge the thought with our identity.
Precisely. We assume the thought defines the thinker. If there's anger in the mind, I am angry. If there's greed, I am greedy. But MN 19 shows a method where thoughts are categorized not by their nature, not by whether they feel good or bad, but by their practical outcomes.
Okay, so let's open this logbook. How does he actually start? I mean, if I'm sitting there with a head full of chaos, categorization sounds a little easier said than done.
He starts with a very deliberate action. The text says, I entered upon a dwelling, dividing my thoughts into two classes.
Dividing my thoughts into two classes, that sounds almost administrative.
It does, and that's the first clue. The very fact that he's dividing thinking proves something crucial right off the bat. He's not treating thoughts as inherently defiled. He isn't treating them as sins that stain you.
And he isn't treating them as pure either.
Exactly. They're just material. They're data to be sorted. Imagine a recycling center. Glass goes here, paper goes there. You don't get angry at the glass for being glass. You just sort it.
Okay, let's slow down on that. Because usually, if I have a thought of sensuality, it feels like a pollution. It feels like something that shouldn't be there. Like I've failed just by having it. But you're saying the act of dividing them changes that.
It changes the observation completely. The text uses a very specific phrase here, uppajjati kama vitakko.
Which means?
A thought of sensuality arose in me.
Okay, a thought of sensuality arose in me. That feels distant. It's very different from saying I am sensual.
It is distinctly different, and this is the linguistic precision of the Pali. He doesn't say, I am this thought. He doesn't say, this thought captures my true nature. He simply notes, a type of thinking has arisen.
It's like a weather report. A storm arose. You don't walk outside, see rain, and say, I am the rain.
That's a great analogy. You might get wet, you might have to deal with the rain, but you aren't the atmospheric event itself. This is the stage of recognition. At this specific moment, thinking is simply what arises. It's an event.
So this is our first half of the equation. Thinking, or Vitakka. In this context, thinking isn't the enemy. It's just the stuff happening in the space.
Think of Vitakka as the field of activity, the raw data of the mind. And this brings us to that functional separation. At the moment the thought pops up, that split second, there's no view attached to it yet. It is just the occurrence of mental activity.
Okay, but I want to push back on this a little bit. It feels a bit passive. If I just sit there and go, oh, look, a thought of punching my neighbor arose, and I just leave it at that, well, isn't that dangerous? Obviously, he does something with it.
You're absolutely right. Recognition is step one, not the whole game. He moves from thinking to view. Once the thought arises, he applies a really rigorous set of criteria to it. He doesn't just stare at it, he interrogates it.
And the questions he asks are intense. I've got the list from the source text here. He asks first, does this lead to my own affliction?
Right. Self-harm, psychological stress,
Second, does this lead to the affliction of others?
social harm, conflict.
Then he gets really broad. Does it obstruct wisdom? Does it side with distress? And finally, does it lead away from nibbana?
Now look closely at those questions. What's missing from that list?
Well, he's not asking, is this naughty? He's not asking, is this forbidden? Or is this against the rules?
Exactly. He isn't looking at the content of the thought in a moralistic, judgmental way. He is looking strictly at the consequence.
That is a huge shift. It takes the shame out of it.
Yeah.
So the aha moment here is that he's judging the trajectory of the thought, not the thought itself.
Yes. And that is how we define view, or do, in this context. If thinking, Vitakka, is the raw material, then view, Diṭṭhi, is the mechanism of evaluation. View is how the value and direction of that material are known.
Okay, I want to clarify this relationship because I feel like this is where people get confused. Thinking is the stuff, view is the filter, or the judge.
I'd say view is the governing principle. Thinking provides the subject matter. View provides the wisdom to know what that subject matter implies. They appear together, but they're doing completely different jobs.
Which brings us to a logic check, because this is where I get tripped up. If I have a really unskillful thought, really dark stuff, doesn't that mean, by definition, I have wrong view? Because if I had right view, wouldn't I just not have the thought?
That's the common assumption, isn't it? We think right view acts like a force field that repels bad thoughts. But MN19 proves this wrong. Let's look at the sequence in the text. Step 1, a thought arises.
Okay.
Step 2, it is reflected upon. Step 3, the consequences are understood. And step 4, action is taken. It's either abandoned or cultivated.
So the fact you have to reflect on it implies the thought got in the door before the judgment was made.
Precisely. If thinking and view were identical, a thought of sensuality would automatically mean the person has wrong view. You'd be wrong the moment the thought appeared.
Which is how we usually feel.
Yeah.
I had a bad thought, therefore I am bad.
But the Sita shows that wisdom-right view can exist alongside the arising of unskillful thought.
Because wisdom is the thing that spots the danger.
Exactly. Wisdom is not the absence of the thought. Wisdom is the faculty that says, this thought leads to affliction. This one leads away from nibbana.
That distinction is actually massive. It means the presence of a bad thought isn't a failure. It's just data to be processed by view.
It separates the occurrence from the response. View governs the response, not the occurrence. And this is vital because it stops us from falling into self-condemnation. You are not the thought. You are the one evaluating the path of the thought.
So we need to stop trying to be the thought police of our own minds and start being, what? Assessment officers.
More like navigators. You don't control the ocean, but you control the rudder. You can't stop a wave from hitting the ship, but you can decide how to steer into it.
I like that. But I want to touch on something a bit more technical. We hear about mindfulness being moment to moment, catching the thought right when it happens. Is that what we're talking about here?
We have to be careful with that. It's easy to misread M19 as a purely temporal thing, like we're holding a stopwatch to our thoughts.
Right, it's not a reflex game. Whack-a-mole with thoughts.
It isn't. The analysis in MN19 is structural, not temporal. The Buddha isn't just asking, is this thought here? He's asking, what does this thinking do? What kind of mind does it build?
So it's architectural.
Yes. Thinking is the support structure. View is the blueprint. We aren't just noting that a brick exists. We're determining if that brick is being used to build a prison or a sanctuary.
I really like that, because a brick is just a brick. It's not evil, but if you pile 1,000 bricks of resentment on top of each other,
You build a wall. You enclose yourself in a dwelling of suffering. That's the affliction he's talking about. It's not about the momentary flash. It's about the cumulative construction. Every thought contributes to a structure, and view is the architect saying, no, we are not building a dungeon today.
Okay, so if thinking is the material and view is the architect, we still have to deal with the bad material. What does MN19 say we actually do with the unskillful thoughts once view has identified them?
This is the decisive proof of our whole discussion. The text says, Apanupana kama Vitakka pajahameva.
Give that to us in English.
Whenever a sensual thought arose, I abandoned it.
Whenever it arose, I abandoned it. That sounds simple, but you're saying there's a deeper proof in that phrasing.
Well, think about the logic. If thinking itself were the problem, if the goal was a blank mind, the instruction would be to stop all thinking immediately. The goal would be a flat line.
But he doesn't do that. He abandons the bad ones.
Yeah.
But what about the good ones?
He cultivates them. He develops thoughts of non-ill will, non-cruelty. He keeps the good thinking.
So he's curating. He's not just deleting everything.
He is curating.
Yeah.
And that proves the functional separation. If thinking were the enemy, you'd suppress it all. But because thinking is the field of activity and view is the governing principle, you can use view to sort the thinking.
That distinction, abandoning versus suppressing, seems like everything. Because suppressing is what I usually try to do. It's don't think about the cookie. And what happens?
You think about the cookie.
I eat the whole box.
Exactly. Suppression is an act of force. It's fear-based. Abandoning, in this sense, is wisdom-based. It's, I see this, I see where it leads, and because I see where it leads, I have no interest in picking it up.
It's like picking up a hot coal. You don't need willpower to drop it. You just need to know it's hot.
That's it. And that letting go is powered by the view. It's not an act of willpower. It's an act of understanding consequences. When the view is clear, this leads to affliction, the abandoning happens naturally.
This really reframes the whole idea of the meditative mind. We started this deep dive thinking about the Buddha's mind before awakening, and we've moved from him trying to be a statue to him being this incredibly active, discerning editor of his own consciousness.
It transforms the practice from a struggle against the self into a clear-eyed management of cause and effect. We went from seeing thoughts as who we are to seeing them as what happens, and we see view as the wisdom that navigates those waters.
It goes back to that ship analogy. The waves, the thoughts are going to happen. You can't stop the ocean, but the view. The view is the rudder.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The waves are the field of activity. The rudder is the governing principle. If you have no rudder, the waves smash you against the rocks. That's affliction. If you have a rudder, you use the energy of the waves to move forward. That's the path.
And it implies you can be a master navigator even in a storm. You don't need calm seas to have right view.
You do not. In fact, MN19 suggests it's precisely in the storm, in the midst of the arising thoughts, that the work is done. It's in the solding of the chaotic mind that the path is forged.
Reminds me of that saying, smooth seas do not make skillful sailors.
Indeed. And MN19 is the manual on how to sail through the rough stuff.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this all mean for us, sitting in traffic or in a boardroom?
I think it leaves us with a very provocative question. We often assume that wisdom requires the silence of thought, that we have to empty the mind to be free.
And we feel like failures when the noise comes back.
Right. But MN19 suggests that wisdom doesn't require silence, it requires governance. Yes. So the question is the path to liberation less about emptying the mind and more about editing the direction? If you can edit the direction of your thoughts, do you really need to fear their content?
Wow, editing the direction. That takes the pressure off, stopping the noise completely. It means I don't have to be afraid of my own brain. I just need to get better at reviewing the footage.
It certainly does. It gives you permission to be human as long as you're a conscious human.
Well, listener, that's something to chew on. Next time a thought pops up, try to spot the difference between the arising, the simple fact that it's there, and the evaluating where you decide where it's going. It might just change the whole architecture of your day.
Indeed, it turns every thought into an opportunity for insight rather than a cause for shame.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.